why would you ditch a medical professional for this, right? I mean, that's insane. But when I started posting, I think at around June or July, I really forgot the date. When I started posting my situation, I got a lot of feedback and comments about ditching my antifungal creams or ditching any sort of medication that I'm currently taking in, and then resorted to some alternatives, which is one Reddit user actually advised me to purchase benzoyl peroxide, which at the time I have no clue what that is. And so I tried searching, and then I found this online, which is Panaxil. If you guys are familiar with Panaxil cream and Panaxil, I think there are two Panaxil creams. Like one is for bath and one is for like just cream, like before you go to sleep. And so I dabbled with those alternatives, and luckily, I'm sure you're going to show it on the pictures, at around July or around August, my skin slowly clears up. So it was a good thing because I'm no longer in pain.
You get examples like this and it makes you ask the question, okay, I guess it's recoverable to an extent, and especially, if you do specific things, and if you're not wasting time and you're tackling the condition as effectively as you can, it looks like in a quote-unquote scarring alopecia, you can make a substantial recovery.
I think what helped is I'm not sure if this really applies to everyone, but like for me, at the onset of my pimples, I already started researching. Like I think I've tried to manage it as early as possible. I'm not entirely sure if that's also the case for some people, but like for me, at least in my eyes, since it really helped a lot that I did a lot of research. And
hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the HairStacks podcast. Today I'm here with a special guest, and I'm going to turn to them for them to introduce themselves to the audience.
Hey guys, my name is Rick. I am from Manila, Philippines. So I recently posted to a subreddit, to Folliculitis subreddit, about my journey from how I got started and then up until now, fully recovered. And I'll be more than happy to share my experience. And if you have any questions, just let me know.
Thanks, Rick. So I guess the first question would be, how did this all start? How did this start, you getting folliculitis? From what I remember from some of the Reddit posts, it seemed to have caused some hair loss initially. Could you explain the onset of the condition and how you felt about the condition, how it impacted your life, and ultimately what you did to try to remedy your folliculitis?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it started, I think, if I can recall, since I have like pictures here and stuff, because it was a very dreadful experience for me. It started way back, if I'm not mistaken, May 29, 2023, or around that period, around May. So it was a period during I was busy at work. I was also traveling a lot, and I didn't really pay attention to allergies and such. And so I continued working and then dealing with personal stuff during that time. And then I noticed that at the back of my head, it started to get itchy, right? And so usually I get those types of um, like pimple or whatnot, but it's not really serious. And so what I do typically, I just wash it off with shampoo and just got deal with it, throughout the day. But I noticed that this one is different, and this one actually, um, like I get a lot of pus around my head, at the back of my head, and then I'm sure on the video you're going to be showing those pictures. But it started like at one portion at the back of my head, and then it started to like multiply, and then it gets worse and over time. And so it really affected my confidence at the time, because I started losing hair. And then at around June 2023, I started visiting my a doctor, a dermatologist, who advised me to take ketoconazole, if you guys are familiar with that, and some antibiotics and antifungal cream, which obviously I try to use on my daily basis, sorry, on my daily routine. But then I realized that whenever I use topical cream, it gets worse. Like the pus gets bigger and then it gets reddish. Like my skin and my scalp is really like it's really like reddish and super itchy, and I could not sleep. I couldn't sleep because I cannot put my head down at the on my on top of my bed because it was so painful to a point that I literally cannot sleep. And if that is bad, and imagine my self-image, like I usually, so the type of work that I do is I usually go in front of clients and just talk to them about software and whatnot. But anyway, um, it was very difficult for me to deal with that because it's really obvious. Like if they get to look at the back of my head, it's really awful to look at. And so at around probably at around June around July 2023, I tried to research some things and some alternatives because I feel like my dermatologist doesn't know what they're doing. Although I know that's a crazy thing to say, but like anything that he offers to me or anything that he recommends to me doesn't really work. Like it gets like the breakout gets worse and worse every week. And so I stumbled upon Reddit, and then I typed in folliculitis treatment or whatsoever, and then I saw this subreddit about folliculitis, and then I started reading, and then I saw a lot of stories about ditching their medication and advising people not going to dermatologists, which initially I'm not approved of because obviously, why would you ditch a medical professional for this, right? I mean, that's insane. But when I started posting, I think at around June or July, I really forgot the date. When I started posting my situation, I got a lot of feedback and comments about ditching my antifungal creams or ditching any sort of medication that I'm currently taking in, and then resorted to some alternatives, which is um, one Reddit user actually advised me to purchase benzoyl peroxide, which at the time I have no clue what that is. And so I tried searching, and then I found this online, which is Panoxyl. If you guys are familiar with Panoxyl cream and Panoxyl, um, I think I think there are two Panoxyl creams. Like one is for bath and one is for like just cream, like before you go to sleep. And so I dabbled with those alternatives, and luckily, I'm sure you're going to show it on the pictures. At around July or around August, my skin slowly clears up. So it was a good thing because I'm not no I'm no longer in pain because of the breakouts, and I'm starting to gain some confidence because I don't have uh, breakouts on my scalp or whatnot. But the problem is I still lose hair. I still lost a lot of hair at the back of my head, and so I decided to shave it off. Um, the bad thing there is that even though my skin cleared up, my scalp looks like it's not gonna recover anytime soon. Uh, the reason I said that because when I try to observe my scalp, and remember, I keep on taking pictures of my head every week just to see progress check. I see my scalp; it's super smooth. Like I don't see any hair follicles. So it made me worried a lot. Like, okay, this is not gonna work. I'm gonna be bald forever, or I'm not gonna get recovered from this. But and then I dig a little deeper and did some research about how to improve or like stories about folliculitis treatment and whatnot. And I saw this Reddit post, which I forgot, by the way. I'll try to look for that Reddit post, and it stated there that by improving his health gut, it actually improved their folliculitis for good. Like he actually get into remission. And so I started to research about gut health, what to take. I started researching about um, what do you call this, like probiotics and prebiotics, which I honestly don't know how to use initially. But then I did a lot of some research about it, and then I started taking in um, some pre and probiotics, and then make sure to limit also my sugar intake. I mean, it wouldn't hurt if you improve your diet, right? I mean, it's also part of improving your gut health, and so after a few months, I started noticing that my hair slowly recovers. And then until now, I had, fully recovered my hair. I get some pimples every now and then still. And even whenever I get pimples or pus or whatever, I treat it as usual. Like I purchase benzoyl peroxide and just apply it on my head, but nothing serious like the initial breakouts and stuff like that. So I'm still on the lookout. I'm not considered myself as like fully or completely healed. Like even though my hair is fully recovered, I still get pimples every now and then, and so I'm still always at the guard. Like I don't want that to happen ever again. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so that's basically my journey so far, and I'm still monitoring my progress for any signs of from breakouts from happening again. So yeah. Sorry, that
Thank
was
you.
lengthy.
No, that was perfect. That was very comprehensive, and it gives a excellent overview. I guess my question here would be, what treatment did the dermatologist initially put you on? Were there any use of like antibiotics, like
Right.
doxycycline?
Doxycycline, he prescribed doxycycline to me, but again, like I said, during like around June, I stopped taking antibiotics medication because it made my breakouts worse. Like I literally, I'm sure you're showing this on the video. Like it's like my breakout was really really bad, like to a point like I do not want to go out the house because it looks awful. And then I also got treatment. I don't know exactly what it's called, but like my dermatologist pricked my pus, like he pricked my breakouts. Not
Yeah, I
only
think
that it's
it's
super painful, but it was it looked bad, just to say the least.
yeah, I think that's called a KOH test, if I'm not mistaken.
Ah, I see. Yeah. And then I remember he advised me to take a skin biopsy. So he scraped a skin from my scalp.
Yeah.
And then that's when I learned about folliculitis because at first I don't know what it's called, or I'm not really sure if it's folliculitis. And then after a few days or weeks, I'm not exactly sure when, he advised me that it's folliculitis decalvans, which I was initially on shock because when I was reading FD on Google, it says that there's no remission, or if there is, like really slim chance, which really scared me. It scares me a lot. So
Yeah, folliculitis decalvans, especially the ones that start to form like the plaques on the skin,
right,
very,
hmm
very brutal.
right,
Yeah, but I mean, it's that's fantastic that you were able to get some sort of like biopsy or some sort of like test because I mean, from what I've seen on subreddits and from what I've heard from other people, and even in the literature,
hmm
biopsies are very underutilized. Typically
hmm hmm
the dermatologist, the initial assessment that they make is just visual, right? And then from there,
right,
they give like, okay, well, you have to use this sort of. Let's try you on this antibiotic, or let's try on this treatment. So there's, the further investigation of your problems is kind of like
yeah,
it's left up to you to kind of figure out
yeah,
in many
yeah.
ways.
I think it also kind of helps that I'm really enthusiastic when it comes to resolving the issue. Like whenever I get to visit my dermatologist, I always talked about what I've seen or what I've read through my research, and so maybe that helped him a little bit to like decide to take a biopsy of my skin because I initially advised him to do that. Like, hey, do you think it would be helpful if we do like a skin biopsy? And then he was like, okay. He didn't really initiated the biopsy. I actually asked him if it's possible, and then he advised me to like, okay, let's do a skin biopsy then. And then he proceeded to scrape my scalp. But yeah, I totally agree with you. It's basically it's every man for himself out there.
Yeah, that's another great message, like to really advocate for yourself as a patient. So that's fantastic that you did that, and it's also great that you had a doctor who didn't have any sort of like high ego in listening to
Mm,
their because that's a huge issue that I've seen where some doctors you'll come in with a recommendation or you're talk about a study and then they'll be like no no this is what you're
yeah,
going to do because I told you to. There's no sort
yeah,
of like conversation about your own health, which is kind of crazy to me sometimes. But yeah, that's great that you're able to that you had that sort of positive
yeah.
interaction. Um,
Hmm.
I guess going back to your treatment, um, what was the initial treatment, if you can remember, like everything you initially did, and how did that change over time? So, what was your day to day or weekly protocol, so to speak, and what are you doing right now or what are you doing specifically right now for maintenance?
Sure. So at the initial part of my journey, ever since I had breakouts on my at the back of my scalp, I just treat it with medications like topical antibiotics and whatnot, which was obviously advised by my doctor. But then again, when I try to ditch that, I resorted to apply what do you call this? Benzoyl peroxide. So I purchased two types of benzoyl peroxide. One is for like benzoyl peroxide wash and then benzoyl peroxide cream. So the usual routine for me is that early in the morning I wake up, I take a shower, and then during shower, I apply the benzoyl peroxide wash, leave it for like 5 minutes while I'm scrubbing my whole body, and then after 5 minutes, I'll just rinse it off. And then after that, once I pat down dry, before I go to sleep or after I take a shower, I apply the cream and then just leave it there throughout the day. So that's just basically my usual routine, and then I make sure to um, uh, like take a bath 3 times a day, and then follow the same routine. And then I made sure to change up my bed sheets and my pillowcase every 2 to 3 days because I was so paranoid that I mean, obviously it's a bacteria if I'm not mistaken. Uh,
Yep.
Right. So like staph A bacteria, if I'm not mistaken. So I was worried and I was so anxious that it might be from, the environment that I'm in. So that when I go to the gym, I always bring a few set of towels to, um, you know, to put on the bench, for example, so that when I put my head, it wouldn't touch the bench itself. And so I did a lot of lifestyle modification changes to make sure that I improved my general or overall hygiene. And then aside from that, I tried to, and I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you, if it has some like directly impact my folliculitis progression or improvement, but I tried to limit sugary foods because I saw from my research that it kind of helps improve gut health at some point. And so I made sure to avoid sugary foods. I tried to um, improve my overall diet and exercise as well. And stress, by the way. I try to make sure to um, stay away from stressful situations or stressful people. um, just to like everything to make sure that it won't affect me or it won't, worsen my situation. So those are the things that I've done. And then right now for maintenance, I still have um, uh, benzoyl peroxide standby just in case I get some pimples on my scalp every now and then. I apply uh, uh, benzoyl peroxide, but other than that, it's just I'm back to normal.
Thank you for that response. I guess the point you made, which I just was like, wow, it's about the environment, right? And how we interact with our environment and making sure we're not exposing ourselves to, I guess you can say, really dirty things. Like the
Yeah,
gym, like the point you bring about like putting a towel on the bench and stuff like
exactly.
that.
Yeah. Hmm.
I've yeah, I have had because I also get pimples occasionally, and I noticed one
Right.
time when I was in the gym, people sweat on these benches, and this was a careless
Exactly.
time back in university. I would put my head on it, and then you know about a day later, I would get this bump, and I'm like, oh shit,
Yeah.
this is gonna get crazy. I have to do something about it. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. So I made sure to like bring few sets of towel just to make sure I don't have like direct contact from my skin to the gym or like wash your hands. Like I do wash my hands like every now and then, or sorry, occasionally, whenever I go to the gym to make sure it won't contact my scalp. Yeah.
True, yeah. Another point that people don't seem to realize, and I like that you brought it up, is in regards to the medicated shampoos and washes and how they have to sit on the
Mm,
scalp for a period of time. So, like you said, 5 minutes with benzoyl
yeah.
peroxide.
Hmm.
I've seen people, oh, this doesn't work, and it's like, okay, how do you put it on your scalp? I just put it on and then I wash it out immediately. It's like, oh, well, that's why it's not working because you didn't even
Yeah.
let the medication do its job.
Exactly. So, well, initially I did that with benzoyl peroxide. So I just put it in, just rub my scalp and then rinse it off. And then I also thought that it didn't work. And then I just go back to the Reddit to the subreddit and saw that you have to like and then realized that you have to like leave it in for like a minute or two or like 5 minutes. And I was paranoid, so I leave it for like 5 to 10 minutes just to make sure it work its magic. So I think that really helped because I think again I'm no expert, but I think leaving it in will help the medication or help your skin absorb the medication or something like that,
You're correct,
or
yeah.
fight off the bacteria or something like that. So yeah, obviously it worked.
And then the other point that you made about the sugary food and general Western diets, from what I've
Hmm.
seen in the research, they seem to promote acne. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have a sort of general influence on folliculitis.
Hmm. I think so too. And I think that also improved your gut health overall because I think sugary foods invites a lot of um, bacteria on your gut or something like that. Like it can worsen your gut at some point. I'm no expert whatsoever, but that's what I've read. And so for me, as someone who had FD, I tried to like um, improve my overall diet just to make sure if it works or if it didn't work, then we'll see. But based on my experience, it basically it worked for me. So I guess that's a valid point we're making.
And going back to gut health, what kind of foods did you avoid? And like you mentioned allergies, I think in the beginning.
Hmm.
Did you identify any new like allergies you had? Because like for me, this is a bit of a side note, but at 10 years old, I suddenly developed an oral allergy to fruit. I don't have that
Mm.
anymore.
Hmm.
But I noticed I had other sorts of allergies like maybe about 5 years ago to like specific like grains and such. So, uh, and more so just when I have an excessive sugary intake, I do start to get
Hmm.
pimples, right? So,
Right.
I guess the question is, how did you identify what you needed to avoid, and then what new things did you consume? So overall, How did you change your diet?
Right. So even before I get folliculitis, I'm sort of watching my diet, but I don't really like I watch my calories, but I don't really care about which type of foods I'm consuming. Like I still consume like sugary foods like ice cream or chocolates or candy or whatever. But since I got FD, I tried to limit sugary foods because, like I said earlier, I've um, read that it has a negative impact on your gut health, and gut health somehow, quote unquote, somehow has an effect on folliculitis. And so I tried to limit sugary foods. Um, and then I noticed a drastic change on my skin. Like I'm no longer getting pimples on my skin when I stopped consuming sugar foods. And then on top of that, I just try to eat clean overall, like lean meat or chicken or vegetable. I don't really consume a lot of fruits. I'm not really a big fan, and also fruits. I think if I'm not mistaken, also contains like fructose, which is also sugar. So I try to limit those. Uh, when it comes to dairy, I don't really any like I don't have any restrictions about dairy. I saw in some Reddit posts that it has a negative impact on your FD, but that doesn't really the case for me. So I still consume whey protein, and obviously it's dairy, but overall it's just like candies and sugary foods altogether. And on top of that, like I said, I was taking pre and probiotics.
Thank you for that explanation. I guess people really have to, to some regard, take an individual approach because you know, everyone's different, obviously, and
Yeah.
everyone has different sensitivities. But I think, like there are some general things that I guess people should be doing, and that is definitely in regards to the pro and prebiotics. I think that's very important, just to keep that sort of gut health. I guess another question, and this is just what I just thought up right now. Um,
Mhm.
do you think by taking those antibiotics that your dermatologist gave you, do you think that that had a negative impact on your gut health, which could have possibly been a contributing factor to why you were getting more breakouts?
That is a good question. I honestly don't know if it has like direct correlation to my gut health, like antibiotics. But what I realized and what I noticed is that it didn't really improve my scalp. Like the more I take topical creams like antibiotics cream or like antibiotic medication, it just made my scalp worse. I'm not entirely sure if it has something to do with the gut health, but ever since I stopped taking antibiotics, and then plus taking benzoyl peroxide on my scalp, it drastically improved my situation. But in terms of gut health, I'm not entirely sure if it has direct correlation, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, I was just curious myself because I have noticed that's, some people benefit from the antibiotics, but some people just get worse. And it
Hmm.
actually it makes their folliculitis, whatever may be causing it, just kind of
Yeah.
go haywire.
Hmm.
So maybe that's why I just thought there could be some sort of interplay there. Um, I really wish dermatologists and maybe gastroenterologists, I guess that's the name. Uh, there was some sort of like dynamic between these two doctors where they could really explore things like gut health before giving a patient like an
Right.
antibiotic, right? Because
Right.
some people are put on antibiotics for like 6 months, and then that has its own effects. You're destroying
Yeah.
your gut biome, and some people are on it for like a week, and then their folliculitis is gone. So
Yeah.
there needs to be some sort of like further discourse on the matter.
Further research. I totally agree. Based on my research, I don't think like the health department, especially in the US, I don't think they're really investing too much on this case, like folliculitis. I see a few research about it, which tells me that the health system doesn't really, prioritize these types of cases or these types of diseases, which is obviously very sad and very alarming for those who already had this disease or this in this situation. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I wish doctors or researchers should really pay close attention to folliculitis as well, because it not only that it's very uncomfortable, but imagine the body image, uh, negative body image that it will cause to the patient if they contacted on this disease. And especially for females, I can imagine for us guys,
Oh,
like
definitely.
right? Like imagine for females who had FD, like that would be devastating for them, and I feel so bad for those who already had one. So I really hope more research can be done about this disease or whatever you want to call it.
Certainly a disease in my book. Like, yeah, the point you say about like women or females in general. Um, for us guys, we get a folliculitis or we're male pattern baldness or whatever. It sucks, but it's not quote unquote unusual to see a guy
Right.
who's
It's kind
bald,
of
right?
expected. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually man, this actually reminds me. I think it's to the detriment to both men and women. That sort of like genderized, I guess, bias when it comes to hair loss, because there was this paper from the Mayo Clinic about a particular condition called lichen planipilaris, and it's a inflammatory autoimmune scarring alopecia. And in it, they said something along the lines of, "Oh, we have all these patients. They have this particular issue, but we're only going to focus on post-menopausal women because we think, from what I
Mm,
remember, it's like, oh, we think, that has the strongest correlation with hormonal issues. So they
right.
completely just ignored a broader population because of a
Right.
presupposition that it only affects, women in this particular age group and mostly women. And then in reality, when they put out another paper where they said, oh, we have a data set of 324,000 plus individuals who have hair loss, and only 100 of them have lichen planipilaris. And then I'm like, okay, well, how many of those people were biopsied? That
Right.
doesn't happen that often. So it's like, uh, it's, having genderizing these things and coming in with, you know, too many assumptions. It leads to, these issues that we have in the medical literature where some things just go underreported, right?
Right.
And some concerns don't get, heard as often. So going back to, women who possibly are dealing with folliculitis, again, yeah, the stigma of a man not having hair, okay, it sucks. With women, it's even worse. So I hope these researchers can actually recognize how these conditions impact people's lives, uh, just not from a sort of superficial aesthetic
Yeah.
sense, but also mental health. This thing really affects you.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, so like I remember at the time that I had, like massive breakout, and at the height of my scalp breakout, I was super depressed. Like I don't really go out the house that much because I'm scared of people looking at me, and I had to explain my situation. But then again, if you think about it, like what more if you're a woman, right, dealing with these types of situation, and that would be like double the impact when it comes to self negative self-image. And it made me think that, I mean, I know that companies are also investing to do research, and it made me think it might be this disease is not really um, profitable for them to invest on a research. I'm not really sure, but that's what I initially thought of when I was researching about FD, because it doesn't really have tons of research based on my investigation. And so I just really hope that there would be some sort of um, research for both men and women for all demographic, and thorough research with, including biopsy and whatnot, so that we can get rid of this, and future individuals who will contact this disease will get to manage it as soon as possible.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. There's also other conditions that are, I guess, in the same category as folliculitis. There's this one condition, I think it's called AKN,
Mm,
acne I don't remember the middle word is like kiloditis or something like that. Maybe someone can
mhm.
correct me in the comment section. But it's pretty brutal. Um,
Right.
similarly, it involves this sort of pustule and pimple like presentation. But then eventually, it just in some people it gets worse and worse, and it becomes like this big scar, right? So
Mhm,
yeah, like definitely, I hope we can get more research. But what I find to be, I guess, a bit comforting here with conditions like folliculitis and things that are adjacent to it, it's that
mhm,
there's been so much research on acne that it seems like
mhm.
like a benzoyl peroxide or some sort of
Right.
acne like drugs do have some sort of application when it comes to folliculitis and folliculitis adjacent conditions.
Mhm. Sorry, is that a question?
Oh no, sorry, that's I was just making a
Sorry,
statement.
I got lost there for a
Yeah.
bit. Sorry.
No, no, you're fine. You're fine. That happens sometimes, like and people are just going back and forth on these things. Um,
Um,
yeah.
no, go
Sorry.
ahead. Sorry.
No, no, you can go.
Yeah, so I totally agree. I hope they conduct more research about this because I can imagine the frustration, especially for young people who are listening to your podcast, and who are contacted with this terrible disease. And um, for me, I consider myself lucky because maybe I'm not that sensitive towards this disease, and maybe I had a better recovery compared to most people. I'm not entirely sure, but what about those people who doesn't have the same level of recovery or don't have access to these medications, and they'd be dealing with this disease blindly, right? And I can imagine the frustration. So I really hope we get to um, get more information about FD and whatnot.
And a point about your recovery, were you expecting to like actually get those hairs back to that extent? Because from the
Absolutely
pictures that I've
not.
seen, like folliculitis decalvans, and this is what I don't like about the literature. They'll tell you straight up, and this is demotivating because once you hear it, it's
Right,
like, why would I even try to treat this? They'll tell you straight
right.
up, as soon as you get this, the hair won't come back in those areas. It's gone. It's scarring. It's scarred. But I'm looking at your photos and other people in my Discord server. They were like, wow. I mean, you get examples like this and it makes you ask the question, okay, I guess it's recoverable to an extent. Like and especially, if you do specific things and if you're not wasting time and you're tackling the condition as effectively as you
Mm,
can, it looks
mhm,
like in a quote unquote scarring alopecia, you
mhm.
you can make a substantial recovery.
I think I think what helped is I'm not sure if this really applies to everyone, but like for me at the onset of my pimples, I already start researching. Like I think I've tried to manage it as early as possible. I'm not entirely sure if that's also the case for some people, but like for me, at least in my eyes, since it really helped a lot that I did a lot of research and actioned it as early as possible. Like it didn't get to a point that I get to get the scars or whatnot. But on the pictures, you'll see that I had some scars as well, but it's not that bad because I tried to manage it as early as possible. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that kind of helped me not develop um, irreversible scars. But uh, I also read some articles about FD that it's not recoverable. Like you're not gonna be able to recover from it. Like it's um, like a permanent scarring. But some research also tells me, or some research also mentioned that there's a slim percentage of people who recovered from this, and so that actually gave me kind of hope to eventually I'll recover from this. But to answer your initial question, I didn't really expect my hair to grow. I didn't really expect my situation to, like, myself to go back to normal. Uh, that's the reason why when I had my hair back, like, I want to make sure that I'm always on the lookout so it won't happen again.
Yeah, and I guess the other point is it's not necessarily about full blown recovery. It's about one, stopping a literal disease,
Right.
uh, and two, reducing the pain.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's also a big aspect there as well. Like I've seen conditions adjacent to folliculitis and just full blown folliculitis decalvans where it's really bad. People are at the point trying to cut out portions of their scalp in surgery. They don't care about the missing hair.
Yeah.
It's just debilitating to the you know their livelihood, right? It reduces their quality of life because of that pain,
Mm-hmm.
that they have, that pressure from the I guess the folliculitis lesions. So it's unfortunate. It's when I read about it, it kind of stresses me out, to hear what people are going through, and again how poorly researched this particular area is, and really it affects a lot of people. To be honest.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just want to share with you this research that I read online about um, remission from folliculitis. I'm gonna send it to you over the chat. So this is the research that I've read when I was trying to research about Folliculitis Decalvans and like how to recover from it. So I saw some information there that there was there are a few instances or a few patients who successfully um, got remission or got treated from this disease, and so that gave me a little bit of hope that okay, so maybe if I do some things or maybe if I do lifestyle modification, it might, work, or I might had that, slim chance or slim possibility that I get remission. And so, yeah, like I said, I'm not really expecting my scalp to fully heal, but um, I just try to believe the process, I guess. And I was really desperate to get healed, and so and like I said, I consider myself lucky. I understand that not everyone is or has recovered from this terrible disease, so I'm super lucky.
Yeah, I'm looking at the study you sent. It's phenomenal. Like this guy's recovery, it's amazing. Um, yeah, and I just hope people are able to kind of cling on to that sort of hope, and also I guess it's kind of like acknowledging that you have the problem too.
Yeah,
I think people are so used to acne, they just think, oh, it's just acne, right? It happens on my
yeah.
face. Okay, it's on the scalp. The scalp is skin. It's whatever. Yeah, but no, I'm gonna be honest. It's not. It's not a quote unquote usual place you would encounter an acne. So if it is occurring, if you're having these bumps on your scalp, you should probably address it. Because it's a semi unusual place for that sort of acne, quote unquote acne, to appear. Um, I guess another point is typically on my channel, I talk about like male pattern baldness, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's what people you know a lot of people also deal with that as well. From
Hmm.
what I've noticed though, is that it seems like with male pattern baldness, people also have a oily scalp and excessive sebum
Hmm.
buildup, and that also
Hmm.
causes them to get pimples as well. I
Hmm.
sort of see some sort of interplay where somebody has an androgenetic alopecia, male pattern baldness, but also
Hmm.
they get pimples on their scalp or itchy scalp in the areas that they're losing hair. Um,
Hmm.
real quick, do you have any sort of male pattern baldness presentation? Um,
Um,
yeah.
no, not really. I don't think I have one. Because like I've also, obviously my father, we're on a we're basically an Asian descent, so we don't really had that type of. I'm not sure about other people, but obviously different people have different um, uh, situation. But like based on my family history, we don't really have any male pattern baldness. I
Lucky man,
only
so lucky.
uh, Right, but the thing is, I only had alopecia, quote unquote alopecia, when I had, the onset of folliculitis. But I'm not really familiar with. I mean, I am aware about male pattern baldness, and some of my friends are also dealing with that. But on my end, I don't really had that kind of um, problem. But I want to go back to your point earlier, like. Because I remember when I was starting to get folliculitis, I noticed that my hair was or my scalp overall is like develops a lot of oil.
Yeah.
And so by putting topical antibiotics, now that you mention it, I remembered like it made it worse because I think I'm not dealing with sorry, like it made my scalp extra oily if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And
that makes
so that's
sense.
the reason, yeah, that's the reason why I ditched it because it made my scalp extra oily. And then so I started to like treat it with um BP, which made my scalp drier compared to um putting topical ointments.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if
that's
that makes sense, but
no, no, that
that
makes a lot of
actually
sense. That
made the
makes sense.
change. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole issue with the oily scalp. I always think of like if you're having like sudden oily scalp or your scalp is more oily than usual, it
Hmm.
it's kind of like telling you something like okay, something's about to happen, especially if you're scratching in certain areas and you can
Right.
just feel it. Sometimes you can feel where things are inflamed, where things are itchy, or than more itchier than other areas or than usual. And it's always that oil or sebum production that seems to be some sort of a forecast of what could happen. So yeah, I definitely think yeah that oil sort of production is an issue. Um, Real quick though, did you have anyone like try to tell you about quote unquote natural remedies? Because I've seen even on the
Ooh.
folliculitis subreddit, people talking
Right.
about using rosemary oil, and I think to myself, if you have some sort of bacterial, or some sort of microbe on your scalp,
Yeah.
uh,
Oh,
I
they would
think
love that.
they would love that oil, that those nutrients
Exactly.
to just multiply in. So it's like, it just behooves me that people are
Right.
just fueling the flame, so to speak, with these oils. Like, I guess I just want to know your opinion about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously, when I was posting on Reddit, a lot of people were like contacting me and providing some sort of quote unquote treatment. And then one of them also advised me to get um, rosemary oil or whatsoever, even coconut oil, which made me think, hey, if my scalp is oily, then obviously bacteria would love to stay and they would multiply on a rapid pace, right? In that condition, and so that also made me think that putting topical ointment, which is quote unquote oily, would worsen the situation, and that's the reason why I get rid of all of things that would made my scalp oily or develop some sort of oil.
Yeah,
So I totally agree.
that's the best call there, right? Um, I just it just disturbs me that I see people having folliculitis or other conditions where it's like, oh, my scalp is already oily and itchy. Let me put more oil on it. It's yeah, so the bacteria is gonna multiply rapidly and have a family reunion in your scalp.
Exactly.
Um, and then but I do think that's partially the fault of you know there being a lack of research in the area, which kind of
Yeah.
forces people to. And it's no shade towards people who resort to using something like rosemary oil, but it forces
Mhm.
people to try to solve that issue on their own.
Right.
Because a lot of there isn't that much interest, I guess you can say,
Yeah.
in researching such an area, and I think that's really disheartening.
And I can't actually fully blame those people because I am one of those people, right? Like I don't really have any knowledge about FD, and obviously there's not enough research about it. I think it's a combination of not doing your personal research and also the fact that we don't have enough like studies, like clinical studies about this, made us resort to like whatever, like wishy-washy treatment or DIY treatment, which obviously what I did for myself is just DIY if you think about it. Like I ditch all of my medication that was prescribed to me by a medical professional, and then I resorted to research on Reddit, which is obviously a DIY. And so you can't really blame those people, and it can make your situation worse, or in my case, if you're lucky, if you're a few lucky people like myself and stumble upon some Reddit posts which will obviously give you a good advice, then it's really a matter of luck, I guess, and which is sad because we don't really have, like a concrete way on managing the situation, which is um, brutally devastating for some people. I can imagine.
What would you let me say recommend? Yeah, what would you recommend someone who notices like pimples on their scalp? What's the first thing they should do? Right?
Don't touch it.
Okay.
Just don't touch it. Because that's the first thing that I I did when I saw pimples on my scalp. The usual response is to
But it's so
to
itchy.
fucking scratch
How
it,
can
right?
you resist that?
Exactly. Exactly. So I didn't really I didn't really pay attention to it. So what I did was with my bare hands I scratched it. I think and I understand the itchiness is unbearable, right? Like it's not like, oh, don't pay attention to it. Like it's so itchy, like you wanna fucking scrape it, right? Even if it's really painful. So I guess my first recommendation is not to touch it with your bare hands, um, or use a clean cloth to like cover your scalp and just like gently press your like the skin around the pimple to make it sort of like, quote unquote scratching it, if I'm making sense.
Yeah.
Because again, if you keep on scratching it, the bacteria will um spread throughout your scalp, and obviously if you don't have, especially if you don't have a clean hand, and that will, I know it's super hard to do, but again, that's how the bacteria will spread out if you scratch it and then you touch another part of your scalp. So that's number one. Number two, uh, just do your research, man. Like I know it sometimes it's very like all of us are sometimes we get lazy and we just ask random people about, oh, I had this situation. What do you think I could do? I think it's still best to do your own research, like multiple resources, and then make to a point to you have enough resources to judge for yourself. Like, okay, this is something that I need to think about before I put rosemary oil, right? Like before you even do that, like do a little bit of research about rosemary oil, maybe, right? Or um, FD in general. Like, oh, if I put like what are the usual treatment for this, right? Instead of grabbing anything in your environment and just put anything just because someone told you about this. I know it's a little bit challenging because again there's no formal research about this, but like it wouldn't hurt if you dig a little bit deeper and read a little bit more about the situation. I mean, you have nothing to lose, right? Like might as well um research and do your own thing.
Definitely. I agree with that last part too. Like you have to learn about what you're going through at the very least. It can
Yeah.
be, no one's saying you have to be a PhD expert, but you do have to inform yourself about what you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, just
Yeah.
for your own sake. The first point you made, you talked about how if you excessively touch the folliculitis pimple or whatever, that it could potentially spread the bacteria that causes it throughout the scalp. But some people need to shave their head to properly
Mm.
treat their
Hmm.
scalp. So how did
Hmm.
you go about actually, you know, like doing that?
Right. So initially, I didn't really realize that. So I went to a barber and asked my barber to shave off my head, not knowing that obviously I'm not really sure if he already used that shaver from another people or from another customer, right? And so when I realized that my pimples were spreading, and then I saw in one of the Reddit posts that, or it might be your Caesar, or it might be your razor. It could be clean or whatnot. So the next time I went to my barber, I specifically asked him, which is very weird to be honest. Like asking your barber to, oh, hey, can you clean your razor a little bit more? Because that's a weird request, right? But like I really had to like tell him because and then I explained to him like, hey, I had this situation and it spread, so you might want to can you put an alcohol to can you wipe alcohol to your razor and what and sort of that and so which he's a family friend so he did and so it kind of stopped the pimples from spreading. But I genuinely believe that if you are going to cut your hair, make sure to wipe it with alcohol and make sure it's totally clean so that it won't spread. But yeah, like contact with dirty things would obviously spread your the bacteria.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and I guess it is, it is kind of awkward to just say, hey, in the middle of it, hey, can you like
Exactly.
clean that again? But it's for your
Right.
sake, right? And
Right.
sometimes that has to happen. Again, like that particular AKN, I don't remember the
Yeah.
middle word, but it's like acne something something. But that condition is very disturbing. It's
Mm,
kind of like folliculitis, but it's spread primarily uh, in like barbershops, right? Due to
mm,
um, the supplies or
right.
the shaving instruments not
Yep.
properly being cleaned, and I've seen
Because
that before.
I don't think they clean that on a regular basis. Like I don't think barber.
Oh
I'm
no.
not knocking off any barber or whatever. That's it's a noble job. I'm just saying that it's not in their practice. It's not in their usual practice to like putting alcohol to their. If some barbers are doing that, then God bless them. But I don't think that's a like a normal routine for barbers in general. So what I did like uh like I think August when I was slowly healing from FD I bought my own razor and just anyway I'll be I'm shaving my head off anyway so I made sure to purchase my own razor. And if you're a guy and if you're planning to get a buzz cut or to shave off your head then might as well um, buy your own equipment. That's just for me though. I mean, just to make sure to, you know, you have control over your equipment and make sure those are clean.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Like just having that sort of independence, and even in that setting, you can make sure that it's clean, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that you see the barber begrudgingly, puts a little bit of alcohol and it's okay, I'm
Right.
done. It's like, oh, do it again, man. I don't want to
Right.
deal with that,
Right.
right? I've actually seen that myself in barbershops where
Oh,
it's
really?
like it's like I'm just looking and then like I'm looking at the instruments and I'm like, huh. So that guy you just shaved, give him a haircut,
Yeah.
and you're using that
The same
same
equipment.
equipment on the next guy, and I did not see you wipe it down at all. I
Wipe
had to
it off.
walk
Yeah,
out after that.
exactly.
I got out of there because I'm like, I can't.
Right.
I already have androgenetic alopecia and random pimples.
Right.
I can't make the situation worse. I got to get the hell out of there. That's ridiculous.
Exactly. And if you I mean I'm not sure obviously not everyone has the resources to purchase their own equipment. But like if you do, then you're doing yourself a favor because not only that you're not going to be dealing with rude barbers. Not everyone is rude, but I'm just saying like few people are like that. But also, you don't have to explain yourself over and over again. Like you don't have to explain yourself every time you go to cut your hair because obviously they're going to see the situation and they might ask you. And then as someone who already dealt with that, I know it's super awkward to explain like it's folliculitis and not everyone knows that disease. And you have to explain like, oh, it's not, it's not something that um, will spread from me to you. Like just to avoid awkward situation or awkward conversation, then might as well if you have the resources, then might as well get your own equipment.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Um, it's I can imagine like a barber isn't a doctor or a dermatologist,
Exactly.
so it's quite the conversation to probably have. How did you bring it up to your barber? Like, what are some things you said, and what are some things you can possibly give someone in the audience to kind of like, hey, tell the barber, hey, don't freak out, it's not going to kill you.
Right, right.
That's why I'm here today. You know.
Right. So I remember the initial haircut I had with my barber. He was shocked to see what happened to my scalp, and so I, grudgingly explained to him like, "Oh, it's not something that will, transfer to you or transfer you to your." I mean, it kind of might. I'm not really sure, but like I explained to him like it's not something that's gonna kill him, and so it made an awkward interaction because he doesn't want to touch it. Not only that, he think that it might spread to his tools or equipment or Caesar or whatnot, and he's also concerned about injuring me. And so, and this is way back when I had worse pustules and pimples. And so maybe I guess when you go to your barber, just explain to them that it's just a condition that is um, treatable. It's not something that will kill them or their other customers, and you just wanted to get a haircut so that you know, it would not spread further, and it's just to make sure that you look quote unquote presentable. Because imagine if you have long hair and you had bald spots at the back of your scalp, that would be
Yeah.
super awkward, at least for me, right? So, and again, overall, you don't owe anyone any explanation. Maybe that's the thing that I wanted to say. Like, I know it sucks. It sucks to have uh, bald spots in your hair. It sucks that people would look at you. It sucks that you have to explain yourself over and over again. But again, at the end of the day, they're not gonna think about you, man. Like it's everyone for himself at the end of the day, and just you have to deal with it. You don't have any choice anyway, so might as well fuck it, just give me a haircut. Right?
Yeah. That's a good point to kind of leave it on. I guess we're at the towards the end of this podcast, but is there any sort of final words you want to say to the audience? Anything you want to express? Anything you're looking towards in the future?
Sure. So, for all of your listeners, first of all, thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure for me to share my experience. I am not an expert whatsoever. Just because my method worked for me doesn't automatically translates to everyone. I understand that everyone has a different reaction to different treatments, but one thing is for sure, I completely understand if you are frustrated right now. I completely understand what are you feeling right now. Uh, your confidence is being down. It's really painful to even put your head down on the pillow. I went through that, and I'm also at the same shoe as you're in right now, and I just kept on working on myself. For me, you don't have any choice anyway, right? Like, so might as well do your best to do your research. Listen to these types of podcasts who talks about treatment and research and whatsoever, and just educate yourself. It's for you anyways, so you have nothing to lose, right? And just keep working on it. Just don't stop, or just don't lose hope, I guess, because I was also at the same spot as you were a few years ago, and I also think that I'm going to have this disease forever, but it worked, and I'm wishing everyone the best. Um, and if I have some sort of new um, findings about myself as a person who already had quote unquote remission, then I would more than happy to join for another podcast and to give you a status report. But then again, thank you so much for inviting me on this podcast. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for sharing, Rick. And yeah, like I'll be if you want me, I'll share the Reddit posts too, or any photos you have. I'll be putting it on the screen. Um, but yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely.